Hey guys, Akariss here, bringing you a brand new analysis video featuring Cav Healers, as you guys can see. So, Cav Healers, we haven't had a new one since Nana. I believe that Priscilla was added early on into the game's lifespan. They surprisingly have aged pretty well, despite having no real buffs or changes to them since maybe 2017 or 2018 when they added those refines to their weapons, and that's a good thing. Now, the thing with healers though is that a preference weapon, which I do highly desire them getting at some point, like all the infantry healers, they kind of need something like that to stand out, and I'm sure they've been hesitant to do so because healers are very powerful. They walk a fine line of balance and imbalance, and that's because they hold that colorless role, magical damage, and if you give them just a bunch of stats, they get pretty disgusting. So a balance that involves colorless, getting tons of stats and damage, would require a sort of effect where people run more Raven Tomes. Maybe the preference Raven Tomes need to happen more often, a popular character, or some sort of seal gives you advantage, like Mystic Boost Seal or something, where they would kind of balance healers from being far too strong. That's why I feel that they aren't at their peak that they could be. But despite that, they're still very strong and they're useful in tons of content. Remember, this video does focus on high-level AR gameplay, which means that max investment builds are looked at and how you would use these characters properly. With that being said though, all of these healers are unique in one way or another, and I wouldn't really give the torch to any of them in being the best at necessarily anything. I think if we were to look at these four objectively, the best one is likely to be Ethlyn, and that may be a surprise to some of you, but that's just because of her HP stat. Her HP stat is in a very good sweet spot, so let's go look into it and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So Ethlyn, and I'm going to start off with this, basically the Witchy Wand. It doesn't need to be Witchy Wand anymore. You can pick up Melancholy from Silk, who got recently released, but the idea here is that you can pretty much soft counter infantry pulse teams on Astra or Light, it doesn't matter. The reason I say soft counter is because Ethlyn is going to be taking up that support slot. If you consider a standard mythic team, it involves 2 mythic heroes, a bonus hero, your carry, and that support unit. So Ethlyn takes up the support and you have your carry. Now, to make a proper infantry pulse counterplay, you need to pretty much have Ethlyn engage, which isn't too hard, and the reason I give her that little bonus over the other Cav healers is because she has 62 HP. That's over the Tactics Room threshold, the Panic Manor thresholds. She's pretty much a decent stat spread as well, having decent attack and speed, not too little, but not necessarily too much. I mean, there's not really much compared to here, but the HP is huge because it lets her dodge those key buildings without having to snipe them or waste turns doing so. So the key play, Witchy Wand, a frontline unit using Dazzle, hopefully it doesn't have Null C, and then you try to do a reposition with your carry that follows up, and then a drawback or another reposition from another hero like a Mythic to get Ethlyn out of range from being potentially sniped by the team. That's actually a lot harder than it sounds. I made it sound easy, but it's not that easy. So that's why I say soft counter. It could be a good tech choice to try to beat infantry pulses teams if you feel like your carry plus, like, let's say Male Corrin or Lancina aren't able to fully brute force, let's say, a team full of nukes. So Ethlyn, super strong. However, before I jump into the other healers, I want to say that any of these are good choices. If you're just looking for an investment, just go with your favorite. You know, they are all so close in stat spreads that there isn't one that's going to be drastically better than another. This isn't like comparing, let's say, Donal and Obro from my Blue Lance infantry video, and this isn't like Catria versus like Thea or something, where Catria is just strictly better because of her preference weapon. Even though if you were to consider that if you get inherited weapons, technically Thea would be better than Catria because of inheritable weapons and Thea having better stats due to being released later. So there's always those things to consider, but like I said, just go with your favorite here. All of these will serve you pretty well. And I actually have invested in all of them except Clarine. Clarine's the only one I didn't invest into, and there's no reason why you wouldn't. I mean, you still could. Even with her low attack stat and a super boon in attack, plus having the second highest defense out of all of the healers, she still has a certain place. It's the fact that she has the lowest HP, which does bring her down a bit. Okay, so here is our standard cav line look. If you're not familiar with what cav line is, I highly recommend checking out my cav line video. That will be in the description below, but if you're not familiar with it, you could also jump through my playlists on guides and tutorials, with it being the anti-meta Astra Anima defense team. This is still applicable even late into 2019 when this video is being released. Cav line is huge. I used to run a Naga cav line. I now run a Thrasier cav line, but I still think Thrasier and Duma are both super solid choices that you could make on a cav line. When you look at these builds, I'm looking at them in the max investment scenario. Don't look at this and say, how am I ever going to get a plus 10 Ethlin, attack speed push, ARD, attack defense? These are all really exclusive skills. Harsh command, you'd be right. They are super exclusive skills. That's not the point. The point is you can make it work with different skills. So for example, Death Blow 3 instead of ARD, attack defense 3, fine. You're missing out on a couple points of damage. ARD speed res instead of attack speed push 4 is also fine. I mean, it's not as good because it's not desirable stats for picking off units, but it could definitely help you, especially with someone like Ethlin who actually has low res, so she could definitely take advantage of the extra res that's provided through Mercedes. If you don't have that, there's more stuff. There's attack res push from Brady, there's HP attack, which we're getting through Valbar. So there's tons of alternatives, and don't look at this and think you're tough out of luck. It's not the case. It just depends how you want to play a cav line. A cav line, bunch of healers, bunch of mages on Anima where people aren't getting res buffs, and you basically just barrel down on them turn 1, create such immense pressure that you force the player to not have a strategy to deal with it, or they get picked off on turn 2 or 3 just from tons of range that covers pretty much all units except the tank. So yeah, this is it. Now Duma actually works the best with this team than he would probably with any other team because of that turn 1 pressure. Biggest counter to Duma has always been healing. Through a healing tower, a Heron, or just a healer, Sparkling Boost for instance, those are all really big counters to Duma. And the thing is, since that pressure comes down on turn 1, Upheaval gets its value. It does 7 damage, it breaks a building, which might have been a key building, like let's say healing tower, and your units get that extra 7 damage to kind of snipe units if they need to. Plus he gives attack, which is also really huge. Duma, I don't see a better place for him than here. Running something like Wings of Mercy also means that he could potentially come in and snipe a unit with his really high attack stat, which otherwise rarely gets used. Plus the synergy with Fell Breath, of course. So yeah, now I'm going to kind of run through it a bit, but every single cav pretty much looks the same in their builds. I mean, give or take a couple of speed and attack, as you can see. The HP thresholds are the biggest point to make here. Ethlin gets to use HP speed to seal over 51 HP to dodge a tactics room. The other cavs have to use HP 5 to reach 51 HP, which means they actually get a little bit less stats than what Ethlin would have. Ethlin actually has 146, plus the HP speed is 1 extra point over something like HP 5, plus it's in a more desirable area. It's 2 speed over 1 HP, so much better. So Ethlin does end up having the most rounded stat spread. And unfortunately for Clarine, she actually doesn't even reach 51 HP with an HP 5 because she has the lowest HP stat. And that ends up being a little bit of a problem, so you have to kind of run her in lanes which don't have tactics room. That's either the 1st or the 6th lane. So unfortunately, other units may want to take that where they just have a better offensive stat spread than Clarine. Clarine doesn't have a terrible one though. I mean, with plus attack, if you use the attack speed to seal, 40 speed is pretty good without having a boon, and you have yourself a really fast unit. All of these units do take into consideration that we're running the Duma Blessing, a single Duma Blessing for 3 attack. One thing I'll mention though, because I did say earlier, was that I actually use Thrasier on my comp, and I run a slightly different variant with tankier cavs. And those tankier cavs use stuff like ARD speed res, ARD attack defense, sturdy blow, just ward cavs, and stacking as much bulk as possible to try to set up Thrasier for Wings of Mercy. Because you set up Thrasier for Wings of Mercy, you can actually snipe a lot of spots that would be otherwise really hard to get. So yeah, that's pretty much the way I look at it. You can also run the Naga variant, which gives Divine Fang, Dragon buffs to 2 adjacent units, and that can really shut down a lot of comps that may rely on dragon tanking. However, Thrasier has a dragon slaying weapon, so she still creates a sort of threat if people do miss their kills. So as I said, I've invested in all of these healers, and I'm working on plus 10ing them right now. There's not really too much of a difference with them. Honestly, go with whoever you like, and if you really like the overbearing power presence of a cav line on defense on Anima, I highly recommend it. It can start off pretty budget, work pretty well even as a budget defense, and then it has the sky as the limit. It will get really powerful the more you invest into it, and it's super satisfying to watch. If you haven't actually seen some of the stuff on Twitch of my cav line replays, they are super satisfying to watch. There's no single defense that I've watched from other replays, from anything, even my fireball, that is as satisfying as that to watch. And if you really want to see that, then this is the way to go. Cav healers also are super strong in every other content, I would say, like Arena Assault. And in offense, air offense, you could run stuff like gravity setups, where if there's a lack of dancers, you can actually try hit and runs as well. Plus, good in pretty much any PvE content because they have colorless damage. As I mentioned, if they end up getting buffs, they would borderline be really, really, really powerful. Okay, guys, that pretty much covers my cav healers. Thank you for watching as always. Give the video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you haven't already. Please let me know which one your favorite is. I'll be happy to read it below. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.